Can you believe it? There has been a second assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. In today's English lesson, we are going to look at a news clip and then we are going to discuss all of the difficult vocabulary they use, all of the English idioms, and of course, we will talk about all of those pesky English phrasal verbs. This happened on a golf course that Donald Trump was playing at, and there was a would-be assassin in the bushes. A would-be assassin is just another way to say somebody was trying to assassinate somebody. Now, I have made an English lesson on the first attempt at former President Donald Trump's life. If you would like to check that one out, I will leave a link to it at the end of this English lesson. Let's take a look at the clip. I have slowed it down just a little bit and I have put the words on the screen.
What happened yesterday, you had a very sharp-eyed agent who spotted this rifle in the bushes, and a witness was key to how this unfolded as well.
So that agent was actually leapfrogging ahead of the president.
For each difficult term they use, I will have a picture for you. I will have an official definition, and I will use that term in a sentence. The first one they talked about is sharp-eyed. Sharp-eyed. Now, in that picture, I have a picture of a bird. Do you know what we call that bird in English? It is an owl. And of course, owls have to be sharp-eyed if they want to find food on the ground. What does sharp-eyed mean? It means someone who notices things very quickly. The people who are in charge of protecting the president or former presidents and a couple other people we will talk about later, they are called the Secret Service. And luckily for Donald Trump, there was a sharp-eyed Secret Service member on his team. Let's use that term in a sentence. A sharp-eyed security guard saw something unusual near the former president's car. Now, that is just an example sentence. Remember, former President Trump was playing golf. Oh boy. Already, we have a difficult one. Spotted. Now, the way it was used in the news clip was a verb. Spotted. What does that mean? To see or notice something. In the picture, that person is using a pair of binoculars to see better. What about a sentence using the verb spotted? The police officer spotted a suspicious person in the crowd before the attempt. Again, this is just an example sentence. A member of the secret security spotted the would-be assassin in the bushes. But spotted can also be an adjective describing something. In that picture, let me make it just a little bit bigger for you. There is a picture of a spotted leopard. Here is a sentence using spotted. You could call that leopard spotted because it has spots. Oh no, we haven't talked about what spots are. Well, in the picture, there is, 10, 12 different spots in that picture. What is a spot? Well, it's a noun and it is small marks or areas that look different from the rest of the surface. So in that picture, we have a white surface, a white background, but there are different colored spots. That leopard has black spots. Let's use spots in a sentence. And remember, just an example sentence, this really didn't happen. The police officer noticed dark spots on the ground where the attacker had been standing.
What happened yesterday, you had a very sharp-eyed agent who spotted this rifle in the bushes, and a witness was key to how this unfolded as well.
So that agent was actually leapfrogging ahead of the president.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not going to get any easier when we talk about this next one. Unfolded. I'm going to use it in two very different ways. In the news clip, they used it like this. When events happen or develop. Let's go back to the first attempt on President Trump's life. It happened a couple months ago. This sentence relates to that one. The first assassination attempt unfolded during the former president's speech, but the events for this second attempt unfolded in a different way. It just means a series of things happen in a row. But this is where it can get tricky because the woman in the picture is holding an unfolded map. This is going to be hard to do with a microphone. I need two hands, but I am going to fold this piece of paper. Now I am going to unfold this piece of paper. Remember, when you see un in front of a verb, it means not or the opposite. In the picture is a pair of untied shoes. Now I am going to unfold this piece of paper. I hope that makes sense. Two very different ways to use the word unfolded. If you think this English lesson is helping you improve your English, do you mind hitting that like button? And if you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another English lesson. Now, you may be thinking, 2 attempted assassinations on a president in the same year? That has never happened before. Well, Mr. Trump is a former president, but still, there actually was another president who has had 2 attempted assassinations in the same year. And his name was Gerald Ford. And this happened a long time ago in 1975, the same year that I was born. Yeah, a long time ago. Old man here. Let's read a little bit about this guy named Gerald Ford, one of our former presidents. We will also mention the name Squeaky Fromme. She is quite famous because she was a member of the Manson family. Maybe you know about Charlie Manson. I am going to read this. Feel free to follow along. Gerald Ford, the 38th president of the United States, survived 2 assassination attempts in 1975. The first attempt happened in September when a woman named Lynette Squeaky Fromme tried to shoot him in California, but her gun didn't go off. Just 17 days later, another woman named Sarah Jane Moore fired a shot at Ford, but she missed. Both women were arrested, and Ford was not hurt in either attack. These events made security around the president much tighter. So there is a super quick history about another president who had 2 attempted assassinations in the same year on him. If you would like to learn more about the assassination attempts on Gerald Ford's life in 1975, please let me know in the comments. I would love to do an English lesson about this. We can talk way more about Squeaky Fromme. She's quite interesting.
What happened yesterday, you had a very sharp-eyed agent who spotted this rifle in the bushes, and a witness was key to how this unfolded as well.
So that agent was actually leapfrogging ahead of the president. So the contingency, the mass contingency that stays with the president, his shift is around him, protecting him. You have that asset, that agent going ahead.
Okay, they mentioned leapfrogging ahead. What does that mean? To move quickly past others. Maybe a couple people are running a race together. One could leapfrog the other, meaning one goes ahead for a time and then maybe the other one goes ahead for a little while. Those 2 runners could be leapfrogging each other. So here is an example sentence using it like they used in the news clip. Security was leapfrogging ahead of the former president to spot any danger in front of him. There is that word spot again. This time it's used as a verb. Contingency. Security loves to use the word contingency. What does it mean? A backup plan in case something goes wrong. You might also hear contingency plan. The security team had a contingency plan in case of an attack on the former president.
So the contingency, the mass contingency that stays with the president, his shift is around him, protecting him. You have that asset, that agent going ahead. Truly, like for that agent to spot somebody in the bushes, to notice a rifle, and then also to take aim, because that individual was outside the fence. Even when you take aim, shooting is such an important thing in the U.S. Secret Service, because the idea is when you're going to shoot, it's probably going to be around a lot of people, because the president's always in a lot of people.
Asset. What is that? Security also loves to use the word asset. It means something or someone valuable or useful. The bodyguards were the most important asset in protecting the former president. I also like this example sentence. Reading books in English can be an asset to your English learning. Take aim. Take a look at that picture. I think it does a good job of showing what take aim means. Official definition: to point a weapon at someone. The attacker took aim at the former president from a hidden spot. Thankfully, that did not happen. President Trump was never seen by the would-be attacker. Thankfully, Secret Service saw the would-be assassin first. They took aim at the attacker, and that attacker fled. Fled is another way to say he ran away.
So for that agent to have that wherewithal to take that shot, and we are very fortunate that there was a witness. And that does beg the question of what kind of assets were outside of that area. We're looking at 300 to 500 yards.
To have the wherewithal. To have the wherewithal. What does that mean? To have the ability or resources to do something. The quick thinking guard had the wherewithal to stop the attacker in time. I'm going to use to have the wherewithal when talking about the first assassination attempt on former President Trump's life. I can't believe he had the wherewithal to duck almost as soon as the first shots rang out. I don't think I would have the wherewithal to do that. Let's use it in a sentence right here. It's crazy to think that former President Trump had the wherewithal to duck when the first shots rang out. If you have been watching my English lessons about news stories, you already know the word duck and you know the phrasal verb rang out. Fortunate. Fortunate. It means lucky. Something good happens by chance. It was fortunate that the attack failed and no one was hurt. Begs the question. Begs the question. What does that term mean? Makes you wonder or ask something important. The attempt on the former president's life begs the question. How did the attacker get so close? It's a great question. In the news clip, they said he was only about 300 or 500 feet away from where the president could have been playing golf. At minimum, what does that mean? The least amount possible. Let's use at minimum in a sentence. At minimum, security should be increased after the second attempt on his life. How about this? You should study your English every day for 20 minutes at minimum. It's another way to say the least amount.
So for that agent to have that wherewithal to take that shot. And we are very fortunate that there was a witness. And that does beg the question of what kind of assets were outside of that area. We're looking at 300 to 500 yards. That's about like 3 football fields at minimum. It's a far distance. Are there any law enforcement assets? Because that witness was there and got the license plates, they were only able to catch him at that point because he was driving through license plate readers on the highway.
License plates. What are those? Well, you can see from the picture what they are. The numbered metal plate on a car that shows its registration. Registration, a pretty big word there. We'll talk about it in a minute. Police checked the license plate of suspicious cars near the former president's location. That is just an example sentence. The police did not have to check the license plates. License plate readers did, and we'll talk about them in just a minute. But in the United States, every person driving a car needs to register their car. They need to have a car's registration right over there. It basically means you paid some money to the government and they are letting you drive your car. And this is handled by the state government, not the federal government. We've talked about state versus federal government in other English lessons. But when people pay that money to the government is supposed to use that money to help fix roads, things like that, to make a driver's life easier. But no, license plate readers. I didn't even know these things existed, but hey, if they help catch criminals, I'm all for it. I like it. What is a license plate reader? Well, that picture should give you a clue. Let's take a look at the official definition. Devices that can scan and read license plates. The license plate readers helped the police track down a car involved in the assassination attempt. Ooh, a phrasal verb in that sentence. Track down. It's another way native English speakers say to find, to look for.
Are there any law enforcement assets? Because that witness was there and got the license plates, they were only able to catch him at that point because he was driving through license plate readers on the highway, and that is really what helped catch him. So we're looking at something different now, not just that inner perimeter security that typically is what the Secret Service and law enforcement authorities were focusing on, but again, second incident, both times, long distances outside.
Inner perimeter. Perimeter. You might see that in math class, and it means the distance outside of a shape, like the lines outside that shape. Oh no, I just did my hand in a circle. That's something different. In English, we call that circumference, the distance around a circle. Security talks about perimeter all of the time. The inner perimeter is the safest part of a security detail. Here is the official definition. The closest or most protected area around something or someone. Only security and trusted staff were allowed inside the inner perimeter around the former president. Certainly, nobody with a gun should ever enter the inner perimeter. And the way it sounds, this would-be assassin was just outside of that inner perimeter. Typically, usually, or normally. If you saw my recent hotel English video, I used typical twice. I think I said, here is a look at a typical American breakfast at a typical American hotel. But in that picture, I would not say that Americans typically eat that for breakfast. Most Americans don't typically eat rice for breakfast. Every other meal, like dinner and lunch, possibly, but not usually for breakfast. Let's take a look at a sentence using typically. Typically, the former president's security is very tight, but the attacker still got close. Let's use typically when talking about studying English. I typically study English for 1 hour a day. I am curious. How long do you typically study English for each day? 20 minutes? 30 minutes? 1 hour? More? And yes, I think watching YouTube videos like this does count as studying English.
And that is really what helped catch him. So we're looking at something different now, not just that inner perimeter security that typically is what the Secret Service and law enforcement authorities were focusing on. But again, second incident, both times, long distances outside.
But he's played there many times, and they've probably had Secret Service and a perimeter set up many, many times. So what needs to be fixed right now?
More.
Yeah.
You need more.
Yeah.
You need more. We've got the UNGA coming up. United Nations General Assembly, a lot of people don't know, it's U.S. Secret Service that does all that protection. So all those foreign heads of state that are coming to the U.S., they get protection. A lot of people may wonder why. We don't want anybody getting assassinated on U.S. soil.
Oh boy, this is a tough one. This is an acronym. UNGA. UNGA. Each letter in UNGA represents a longer word. UNGA, United Nations General Assembly. What is it? It's where world leaders meet. And this happens on U.S. soil. As the person said in the newscast, she used to work for the Secret Service. And yes, one of the duties or one of the jobs of Secret Service is to protect world leaders who visit the United States. Let's take a look at an example sentence using UNGA. This is not true. It's just an example. The assassination attempt happened just days before the former president was supposed to speak at UNGA. He is not speaking there, but UNGA is taking place in a couple weeks from now, towards the end of September. Just in case you don't know what United Nations is in English, there is their symbol. You probably call it something different in your first language. The headquarters of the United Nations is in New York. World leaders often come there to speak. And when they do, the Secret Service protects them. So why do we use acronyms? Just because it's easier to say. Saying United Nations General Assembly can be a mouthful. In other words, it can be hard to say, which is why we say UNGA. She also mentioned foreign heads of state. What does that mean? Right at the bottom, leaders of other countries. I wonder how many world leaders you can name in that picture. I made that picture, so I can name all four. But if I didn't make that picture, I don't know. Maybe I could name 3. Let's use foreign heads of state in a sentence. Many foreign heads of state expressed concern after hearing about the attempt on the former president's life. That is going to do it. I hope your English is better now after watching this English lesson. If you're not done learning English, right down there is that video I did about the first assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. That's a mouthful to say too. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.